my pitch for my final major project. My basic idea for the my FMP is to like do like a video essay. It's going to be animated. It's going to be like exploring like an animation director or studios and like comparing them and seeing like the difference between like ones from like the West or Asia or Europe, and like looking at the themes, the styles, like that type of storytelling. I'm gonna like cut between like using animation and showing clips from the film to kind of pad it out a bit more, since, well, I don't know how long it's going to be, but you know, animation takes a long time to make. I'm also going to have like quite a heavy focus on the script as well, so like what I have to say is going to be a key part and it's going to be quite important. Yes, as I said, I'm going to look at like the themes of like each like director and the studios they come from and how they've impacted like animation industry in general, and also like the studios they're a part of. I'm gonna like kind of look at how they're unique themselves, like looking into like auteur theory and stuff, like showing like why they make the type of stories they do. And like also like talk about the background a little bit, like where they came from, so you can kind of get an understanding on why they tell the types of stories they do. My second idea is to kind of make it a bit more like focused, so maybe to just, instead of comparing various studios like or directors, just like talk about one and like specific films they've made, instead of trying to branch out and do like a mixture around the world. Kind of done like a mood board of kind of some stuff I was like inspired by, mainly like the ones on the left, like from this country, like Wallace and Gromit. It's kind of Aardman's like the biggest kind of British one, and like Studio Ghibli is like the biggest Japanese one, and like Disney and Pixar are kind of the biggest, most well-known kind of Western studios. I kind of made like a timetable of like my plan. I don't know how closely I'm going to stick to it, but I'm going to try and get like all the pre-production stuff done as quickly as I possibly can. I want to take as long as I need to animate it. Like, that's going to take the longest time. Hopefully I'll be able to come in through half-term week, because I need as much time as I can to animate it. But there's some like issues. Obviously, the main one being time. Like, it takes a long time to make. But also like looking like copyright law. I don't know how much footage from films I'll be allowed to use. So I'll have to like look into that and make sure it's okay to use like, even like the audio from the film. It might kind of get flagged if it's like uploaded to YouTube or anything. Editing and like audio, I'm not massively like experienced in those areas, so I might need a bit of help, especially with like the audio side. I might need Adam like to like kind of go through some stuff with us, and also like I'll need a Mac like the whole time, because they're the only ones with Flash on, I think. I'll definitely need access to Adobe Flash.
Do we have a MacBook? Laptop?
There's a staff one, but I don't know if you can lend that to students. Don't know.
That's it.
Okay. Rebecca, you got any feedback? What length are you kind of expecting it to be?
I want it shorter than 10 minutes, so I really don't want to go over that time, but I think I've got to try and get to like 5 to 7 minutes, I think.
And also, like, what would you want it to sound like? Would it just be like a voiceover when you're doing it?
Yeah,
or
would
you want like sound effects with it?
Well, I'm going to use like, when I use like clips from films, I'm going to have the audio from the film if I can, but I'm just going to have me talking throughout it, and besides I haven't really thought through if there's going to be like any back track besides that.
Is it sort of going to be, it sounds
educational? Is that sort of
Yeah,
what it is?
it's kind of like a video essay type thing.
So who's your audience then? Is it going to be?
Just kind of, I think just anyone that's like interested in like animation, or anyone that wants to like learn about different studios and directors and stuff.
Where are you going to distribute it?
Research actually. Well, like YouTube's the obvious one, but I'm gonna try and look into like film festivals and stuff if I can. But also, if we do like a screening like here or just anywhere I really can, I'm gonna research that actually.
When you had your timetable up, it all looked very, very kind of busy.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of plans, plans that you can fall back on, and if any of that maybe goes?
Well, yeah, that's kind
little
of
bit
what I
more.
put for the Mondays and Fridays, since I'm off those days. Like they're kind of the days where, if I'm not up to date with something, I'm going to use them days to focus on getting caught up with stuff. But if I am caught up, I'm going to use them to like continue with like a minute. So like Mondays and Fridays are quite important.
So you do have a contingency if you need one.
Yeah.
Do you know equipment-wise what you're going to need?
Mainly just, I mean, a Mac. I've got like a drawing tablet, like myself, and
Like a Wacom?
yeah, something similar.
Sorry?
Yeah, something similar.
Try and talk to IT as soon as you can, because then they should be able to install the drivers for you. It just means that you can kind of bring it here and you can use it.
Oh, I
On the
can
Macs,
use
yeah.
it worked on the Macs through there.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and then just like the audio stuff, I mean, like the basic stuff. I mean, I don't really, that's kind of one of the bits I'm lacking knowledge on.
It's one of the most important areas and
Yeah.
one of the hardest areas. Maybe just go out, get, I don't know, maybe take a Zoom out if there's any available, just have a play, try and figure out what sounds you need to be able to kind of bring kind of the story to life, because a lot of that will be audio.
Right. That's good. So maybe have a practice with the audio stuff and, like you say, speak to Adam
Yeah.
and see if he can give you a tutorial, or he sets you some tasks to do. Go through the equipment and sets you some little mini tasks, and then but they're going to have to be done this week. I'll speak to him. Have you considered any other potential issues or problems and how to kind of compensate or prepare for them?
Not really, I don't think so. I mean, time, just kind of get on it as soon as possible, really, like.
I think time's one of your biggest
Yeah.
issues.
But I've sort of thought of like kind of ways around it, cause like, I mean, obviously, if I try and keep it small, there's like some of, like if I use like jump between like film footage and the animation, that takes some of the time away. But also, I don't want to just use film footage. So like, might kind of do like an animatic style kind of thing as well, where it's like, it's not necessarily all frame by frame. It's like it can kind of like jump a bit more. It's like in a specific style, and it kind of makes it a bit easier.
Yeah.
That was going to be my first question: is how are you going to animate it? Because if you're talking for an academic video, it's got to be some substance to it in terms of time, just to try and make a point. If you are hand drawn animating stuff, you know, that takes years. If
Yeah.
you're just on your own to do that kind of thing, or maybe, you know, months at least, and you're kind of up against it. So that's, yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if how are you going to kind of go about that?
Well, I kind of, as I said, like I don't want it to really, I want it to be shorter than 10 minutes for a start, but like, I don't know, I've kind of, like last year I kind of done like a one on the whiteboard. I could do like, I mean, I'm going to do all on computers and stuff, but like a similar sort of style, where it's like, I know like that animatic kind of style of it, where it's like, it's not all completely fluid and moving all the time, it's like, kind of stills and stuff as well.
I mean, there's the thing of, it's like what Kieran Hunter did a couple of years ago, isn't it? Where you used all video game and film footage. You did like an academic essay. Have you seen that? You must have seen it.
Yeah.
He was talking about Outlast and games like that. But it was just him talking over footage. There wasn't really anything else to it, but it still got a distinction, didn't he? Still,
Yeah.
It's got quite high level work.
He interviewed people as well, I think, people that were relevant in that field.
Oh yeah, but I mean in the finished
Yeah.
piece, it was just that. The only thing I'd probably see as an issue with that, because you can use it as long as you flag it as academic on wherever you put it and things like that. You're allowed to use footage, but Disney are really fussy about their things getting out into the world way more than anything, and that's something you might have to bear in mind when you're touching on that kind of stuff. Is that
Copyright is another
That-
copyright
yeah.
is potential problem, so you need to look into that. You can There is something called the fair use.
I did
Yeah.
look into fair use, so
Yeah.
yeah, I started looking into that, and like it kind of, the way it's worded, it seems like what I'm doing is fine, but
Well, you're not profiting from
well,
it.
no, I'm
No.
not profiting from it, but
and it's an academic thing that
but
they do let you round, but
they're still a bit picky about
Disney
it.
lawyers are much stricter about
What you
stuff.
could do is draw a Mickey Mouse or have a very basic.
No,
looking
they're pretty
Mickey
fussy
Mouse.
about that as well.
Are they?
Yeah.
Right,
If you enter it into a film festival, that could be classed as monetising it in some
Yeah.
senses as well, so you need to be careful about that.
I mean, you're probably not going to enter a video essay into a film festival.
Yeah,
It's not going to work. So it is for educational purposes.
Yeah.
You just have to think. Obviously, you're going to put it online afterwards, but do try and think about, or you at the research stage, think about distribution, presentation, who it's for, and acknowledge that in your research.
What are you more like to focus on in terms of the content? Is it the history of animation? Is it
No,
about
it's kind of
how
like,
that works, or is it just broader?
It's
Styles.
more like the specific kind of films made by like kind of specific directors and like or the studio, and like how like they differ from each other, from like Western ones to very different to like British ones, and like British animation is quite different from like Asian animation. Just kind of comparing different styles and themes of them and all.
Okay.
What do you
So-
want to concentrate on? What are you leaning towards more?
Well, I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of that, like talking about like the actual, how like say for example like Toy Story is like very Pixar for example, and how like sort of themes of like Pixar kind of films like you can see them in like Toy Story for example, or like how Wallace and Gromit's like very British, and how like Nick Park's experiences and stuff like lead into that kind of that idea. Like comparing them from like region to region and like studios from studios and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So you'd prefer to compare two or all of them? You want to do like 3 different regions? You want to do like America, Europe and Asia?
Yeah, I was thinking like 3. But if like, I mean, if it might take a bit longer, I might kind of cut down to 2. But
It sounds like a lot if it's going to be looking at in any depth.
I
But
think
those
it
kind
would
of
have
things.
to be scripted really well.
Yeah.
Really well. I think you're just going to have to concentrate on one aspect of it if you're going to do the 3. So concentrate on the themes or the style or the narrative within them, rather than try and cover everything.
It does sound like it could be like a 10-part series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah,
Easily.
yeah,
Easy, yeah.
that's kind of a potential problem as well. There's kind of a lot I want to say in a limited amount of time, and I'm really determined to not make it like. I kind of want to keep it to like 5 to 7 minutes kind of length.
If you script it first though, and then work out how long it would take you to make a certain bit of animation, and work out how much animation you're going to need to fill in the gaps between the rest of your footage, you can kind of work out how long you can get away with making.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan. I was going to get the script done kind of as quickly as possible, and like storyboard it, see how long it's going to be.
Yeah. I just think for that 5 to 7 minute kind of time, you sort of need something with a finite amount of information almost. Whereas analysing style and comparing and contrasting and stuff, before you've even set up what each style is, you've kind of filled your 5 minutes. So I'd imagine. So I think I don't know. I don't want to push you away from that because I think it's a really good idea.
I do.
But I feel like if you're aiming for that kind of window of time, I think it needs to be something really more defined of what it is you're talking about. Like, it's boring and I don't want you to do it, but like a history of animation or the significant moments through history of these events that happened, because it's really defined information then, and you're not really expanding on it. But it's much weaker than what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. What do you
I
think?
think
It seems more realistic,
The history of animation.
or like like a key moment, so you can touch on all Aardman and
It's been done before.
Ghibli. Yeah, that's the trouble. That's what I'm kind of saying. That I don't want it, but I don't know.
I think this is good. I really like the idea.
I do,
of
yeah.
just-
I think like I mean the only reason I don't want it to be like over like 10 minutes is because of how long it's going to take to make. Really, I have to rely a lot more on using other footage.
Hmm.
I think Amy Andrews did the history of animation in her first year.
Yeah, I remember seeing something similar.
So,
Definitely focused on
Yeah.
animation.
and I think Aidan Blackett did it a few years ago.
It is a bit done,
really
which is,
well,
but I don't know.
Maybe,
that took him months though.
yeah.
So
maybe look into kind of the product that you eventually create. Maybe look into why you're making it. What's its purpose once you've finished it? What you want it to kind of try and have a reason for it, and then maybe focus around that.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea. I think you look at the three. I think you look at the three areas as in terms of continents. But then that's huge.
Well, I've done, yeah, I mean I kind
So I
of.
think you need to pick like one, because I mean if you're looking at America, you can look at Hanna-Barbera and everything. You know, all that kind of cheaply made animation that was done very quickly. You know, like Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones and stuff.
The other way you could spin it is set the video up so you're trying to answer a question, and then you can have a definitive end. You can answer the question at the end of the video, and you've got
Use that, do
a
your
certain
research
ending
as well.
point.
So it's more
Primary research
structured.
as well.
I mean,
Yeah.
You can link that with your primary research if you actually ask people and interview people.
Even
what they want to hear.
building off what Ed sort of mentioned earlier, you could do it as a hypothetical part one in a 10-part series of these things.
Yeah.
You don't have, not going to force you to make the other 9, but you could sort of set it as that, couldn't you? Of
Yeah.
like, this is me. I'm going to look at these things. This is the first thing I'm going to look at in all these, and it's sort of episode 1 of, you might never do the rest, but maybe that's a way to look about it as well.
That kind of look a bit ridiculous if there's like never like a.
I just
Well,
mean,
then some people could just do the opening of a film, like they have an idea of what the script is in their head, but they never finish the rest of the film. They just want to do the opening or a trailer for it. It's just the same as that.
Or you could do, so you were saying you were going to see how you got on with, and maybe just do 2. You could say that if you'd had more time, you could broaden it out and you could have done 3. So you could discuss the idea of doing 3, and then narrow it down. I mean, you could discuss the idea of doing 3 and do 1. Something that you could continue. That could be continuous. Like Ed says, it sounds like a TV series.
I could kind of like spin it like kind of like looking at these 3, but this time I'm going to look at this one. No,
Yeah.
whatever.
So you could actually write down the differences between Asian cinema and European cinema. Like you said, I said that animation. So you were saying about Aardman being very British, having a very British sense of humour, having British iconography, British attitudes, and then the Studio Ghibli stuff has very Asian stuff, like the meandering storytelling and all these things appearing and then disappearing for no obvious reason, and the narrative being much more flowing, those films being quite spiritual as well, which ties in with their culture. And then you get very narrative-driven, goal-driven Pixar stuff.
Yeah.
So that you get, which is it's very American. So you could look at the cultures, but then you could look at them, but then actually physically just do one. I think
Yeah.
that's a possibility.
I think you can look at other stuff as well, like the ASAP science videos. Did you watch them last year? Where it's like
yeah,
it's
I
like
saw
they're like a real information dump. They just fly through the information really quickly. They don't really go into any depth. It's just like bang, 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 fact, 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 and it just really powers through them. Is maybe the other way you could get through it, and then you're not worried about animating lots of stuff. You're just doing short little bursts of it here and there. I mean, it's still a lot of work, but you're not animating for seconds and seconds on end of the same thing. You're just doing, that's really like a second of stuff, and then you're moving on to the next one. It jumps really quick.
Or have like
But it's not as
5
academic
things
then.
to do with each one. So 5 things about Asian cinema, 5 things about cinema animation, 5 things about European animation, and 5 things about Pixar. American. So, and you could pick a particular studio that reflects the wider values in that continent of culture. So you could like the ones that I sometimes watch are like 10 conventions of film noir, 10 conventions of horror. So you could make it very structured. That would narrow it down.
Yeah.
I think.
Does all of that make sense? Because that's a lot to throw at people as well.
Well, you can review it. You've got
Yeah,
it
recorded.
What you gonna add, Rebecca?
It's only slightly related, but like with the 10 things sort of thing, if you were to do it like that, then there's other content that you could create from that you could use to like promote your video. Like you could write articles about that with like some of the points, and then just be like, oh, if you want to see more, then have it directed as well.
Like clickbait.
Yeah.
Number 7 will blow your mind.
I heard my 7-year-old use that term clickbait, and it really frightened me. Because it made me think of something else.
Okay. That's on record now. Who are you going to present it? Are you going to do it yourself? Because I know last year you hired.
Yeah, I got Finn to do it last
But
year.
it wasn't very good.
Well, no, it was because it was a bit weird because it was coming from it was quite clearly my thoughts and impressions, but it was coming from Finley. So,
And he sort of did a weird accent on it, I remember.
well, I don't think he really understood the tone
No.
that much, so I'm definitely just going to do it myself this time.
Okay, that's good. That's what I wanted to hear.
I mean, I was going to do it last year myself, but I was told not to.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Who told you?
You.
Me? Oh well. I wouldn't hide Finley, but yeah, okay, sorry. You should do it this year, definitely.
Oh, that was last year.
Well, I think as well because last year it was I brought examples and they were quite energetic and snappy and all that, and that's not me.
No, that's right. But there's an art to doing voiceover and stuff, and it's about set yourself in a comfortable environment and get yourself hyped up, do some jumping jacks, and it's easy, easier.
I mean, Dean did it last year with his Rasputin thing, and
Yeah.
Dean's got the most droll, dry kind of attitude, and it worked really well,
It did, yeah.
So just be yourself.
It feels more honest when it comes from you as well. If I apologise for last year, but yeah,